Senator Tillis of North Carolina.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Baidoon, so if someone making a business decision to charge a price that they believe is over a general market value that reduces the number of people that can purchase it, do you think that's a bad practice?
Senator, I think if companies engage in practices that are unfair, deceptive.
Well, no, I'm back to that specific use case. Mm-hmm. I am a business person knowingly making a decision to price above to reduce the number of people that could afford a product that I've decided to sell. You think that that's fundamentally a bad decision?
Not necessarily, Senator, but we do have the concept of price gouging still applies. And if companies are raising prices to protect their profit margins from rising costs, that's one consideration. But if they're hiking their prices to reap super normal profits, that's a problem.
In your opening statement, I think you may have mentioned that you believe corporate profit margins are abnormally high. Do you agree with that? That they're abnormally high? Because it seems to be in conflict with the Fed report of September 2023, where they said when you adjust for COVID, some of the COVID policies implemented, that they were more or less back to pre-pandemic levels. So do you disagree with the Fed's assessment?
Senator, over the last 3 years, corporate profit margins have hovered around 70-year highs.
So you disagree with the Fed's assessment in their September 23 report?
I'm not familiar with that specific
It'd be
passage,
interesting for the record in that context if you disagree, because it seems to be in conflict. I'm just curious. Mm-hmm. Ms. Schrader, and thank you, Mr. Baidoon, for the skimpflation. That's a new one I can add to my lexicon. But let's use Frito-Lay as an example. Look, they're making a bit. I was using that example. You answered the question differently, but a homeowner who decides to price a house above the market is making that decision at an atomic level. I'm glad you actually did not say that was a bad thing, because we can't create a free market sort of concept for small businesses and not a free market concept for big businesses, because those big businesses were once small. And I think it's very dangerous when we decide that perhaps we should have some oversight to determine what an adequate profit margin is for, let's say, a Frito-Lay. I don't know if you're probably too young to remember it, but Frito-Lay had a catastrophic failure with fat-free potato chips. You remember those, Mr. Chair, Olestra, that ended up not doing very well. Businesses don't always succeed. Sometimes businesses lose money. And so we only seem to talk about this when businesses are succeeding, when businesses aren't going into bankruptcy. I, for one, think that the internet's doing a pretty good job of identifying when potato chip bags are getting smaller. I, for one, am very cheap. So I'll go find a brand that I like that hadn't skimped on me or hadn't shrunk on me. I don't know why the free market's not going to take care of this, but you did bring up something that's critically important that I happen to agree with. It's actually the only thing I agree with, to be honest with you, based on your opening testimony, and that is the use of consumer data. This is where we're failing. We just had a hearing, Mr. Chair, in Finance yesterday. A couple of years ago, when Europe implemented GDPR, Congress was hot to say we've got to get controls over data. People should have to explicitly opt in to having their data shared, knowingly marketing it, et cetera. Everybody was hot on it, and then all of a sudden we found out there were 2 or 3 committees involved. We wasted 2 or 3 years, and we haven't done a damn thing. As a matter of fact, we've implemented a patchwork, states have, that are actually making it more costly. So now these, to some people here, bad corporations are actually incurring more costs because they're having to adhere to a patchwork of data privacy rules at the state level because Congress has failed to act. I actually believe if we want to reduce prices, then we have to go back to what Ranking Member Scott referred to. We can't just say it's just corporate greed. We have to look at the last 3 or 4 years of added regulatory burdens, of a lack of really trying to work on trade agreement, all these things that actually affect global competition and ultimately price points. But on that issue, because it was brought up in finance, on data privacy, data ownership, data breach. Boy, I hope we can get that under control, because if we do, it will fix some of the stuff that you're talking about. Thank you, Mr. Chair.